Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Chairperson, just to kick off to say thank you to Ian McCormick and Mary Connell who invited me. I'm very proud as a Laois person to be coming back and very honoured. It's lovely to be here today. And I suppose the concept of how do you go from the concept of the wild geese to the ramblings of a charity CEO, it seems a rather meandering path. And then, having been honoured enough to be asked to come here today, what is it that I might say that might interest you, or that you actually might listen in here? So bear with me for 3 minutes. I was promised 3 minutes, not 10. A bit about me. I suppose I've had quite a meandering journey, and some of you here in the audience might have worked with me while I lived in Laois. I worked for a number of years in the health services and in senior management for most of my working life. But my journey over the past number of years, it's exposed me to lots of those Irish emigrants, the wild geese, so to speak. And I've taken my bag of tricks to the USA and to London and parts of England to talk about the work of the Irish Hospice Foundation and to garner support for work. And I've had a personal journey as well, which I'll tell you a little bit about as well. And last year, the Irish Hospice Foundation, we published a book entitled The Gathering, Reflections in Ireland, and there's moving and thoughtful stories from a range of Irish people. And like Gabriel says, there's one for everyone in the audience. They're out at the front desk if anybody wants it. But we promoted it in Ireland and internationally, and I travelled to speak about the book to many audiences. And in doing so, I met many emigrants, be they first, second or third generation. And I met people who have thrived, who've shone and have carried that mantle of their Irishness across the world. And there's a few people I wanted to talk to you about, the likes of Tom Moran. Anybody who knows the Irish American in New York will know about this guy, Tom Moran. He's a big, larger-than-life man. He started his life, he told me he grew up beside the biggest landfill dump in Staten Island. He went into Mutual America as the janitor. He left school early and he rose all the way up. And he's now president and CEO of Mutual America, which is one of the largest pension funds in the States. And throughout the years, he has brought his support to all things Irish and to the development of this modern state. Some of you might have noted or might remember his input to the Northern Ireland peace process. Recently, at the funeral of Albert Reynolds, I saw him in the audience at the funeral, and he was mentioned, a quiet mention in the newspaper. But in his conversations with me, he dropped the names of some of those who were hugely involved in the peace process. He said, you know, when I rang Bertie and when I rang Albert and Jerry and all of those, now you don't get to be on first name terms or on mobile terms with some of those people without having played your part. And he did. He championed the way in the USA for support for the peace in Northern Ireland and provided support on US soil for those who wanted peace. And I think we're only beginning to realise the part that the Irish American audience and community played in the peace process. So there was a huge benefit in terms of coming back to lend that support. Another lady I met was in the last few years is Dr. Anne Merriman. She was born in Liverpool to Irish parents, but she came back and joined the medical missionaries of Mary in Drogheda and trained in UCD as a doctor. And she went out in the 1960s out to Singapore and then to Africa. And she spent 33 years of her life developing hospice care across Africa. She's founded 3 hospices in Uganda. And she really is an amazing, amazing woman. She was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. She didn't win it last week, but we honoured her at a reception in Dublin. And she says it's a human right to die free of pain and at peace, and we of course agree with her, and she's brought peace to so many people and really has, she talks about Ireland being her adopted country, but she's just an amazing woman that has brought benefit to other countries there. And I've met lots more that succeeded. The wave of emigrants in the 80s have brought people like Trevor Madigan and Shane Naughton in the States who are really transforming businesses and really doing well. And all of those, you can see their input, and they're all inputting. A lot of them are tied into the American Ireland Fund, so they're channeling financial and strategic support to initiatives all over Ireland and providing a much needed source of income to many causes. So there's one very clear benefit. We also have to remember the wild geese who set up the wineries in France, and I think many of us benefit from their products as well on regularly at the weekend. But in my journeys, I've also met people who have had a rougher journey. And I remember going to Manchester, meeting the Manchester Irish in their new Irish Centre and talking about the book and realising in the audience that this was a very different audience. And they talked to me about their journeys of getting that phone call in the middle of the night, you know, come home quick, Mam's not well, and having to make that journey across the rough seas to come home to relatives who were dying at home. And they also talked about their fathers or grandfathers coming over to England where they actually weren't wanted. The only thing that was wanted was their labour. And they talked about that hurt and that pain. So the real cost, you could see that cost in that community because the hurt lived on. So thinking about today, I was reflecting on those people that I'd met and that have survived and those who have survived, and what is that enduring quality of those that succeed, and what can we learn that it helps the generation of Irish coming up, our own children, those Celtic cubs who have come up with having lots but have had to endure the last 6 years of really tough austerity, and as Anya says, are probably going to have a much tougher time ahead. So what is it that we can learn from all of that experience of emigration? And the quality that strikes to me is that of resilience. And if you read the life of James Fintan Lalor, but if you read the life of Daniel Connell, Clinton, Obama, Tom Moran, each one of them suffered tremendous obstacles. I mean, the one word that comes to mind when I look at James Fintan Lalor is how on earth did he keep going with all that was thrown up against him? It really, really was amazing. And to continue with their life work. And that strange character of resilience is what separates the winners from the losers. And I've had to draw on my own resilience at times, so to learn how to survive and to relive my life after the death of our second daughter. And it's something any of us faced with that seemingly endless and impossible grief, you have to find that challenge within you to keep going and to find that resilience. So then it got me thinking about how do you foster resilience in your children, and how do you foster your resilience in the staff in the workplace? And I've worked in management over 20 years, so you constantly are reflecting as a manager, how can I be a better manager? How can I empower these staff? How can I inspire these staff? And how do I not kill them every day or anything? All of those things that you reflect as a manager. And particularly around restoring the quality and trust in our social and public services, because that's the background I've come from. And I think our social and public services have taken a real battering over the last number of years. And I think there's been a lot of damage done to those public services. All of us here, anybody who've worked in public service, will have seen programmes of tremendous cuts, really, really bad cuts. And when I deal with public services and the social, I suppose that social sector, I see very low staff morale. I see some really extreme negativity. I see burnt out and what they call difficult staff. I see staff who've given up caring, and I see that diminishing quality of service. In the health service, I've seen very, very bright and talented people laid wasted after years of trying to navigate the politics of whatever system they're working in. But I've also seen great people. I've seen great people, one who survive and succeed. And they're not always the high flyers. They're not always the ones that were going to shine to the top. But they're people who can draw on that inner resilience and can stay positive, pleasant and productive. And I had an experience yesterday. I brought my daughter to St Michael's Hospital in Dunleary. You wouldn't know it down here, but we've been 2 years waiting for this appointment. So I came in quite angry because the appointment had been lost off the system and all of that. And I met staff who did their utmost to make sure that they got an appointment for my daughter, and they were extremely pleasant and extremely nice. And I thought, that's it coming back, that's that quality, and that's it. And they're staff who are really knowing that they're coming into a waiting room full of people who've been waiting 2 years for that appointment, and they're probably going to face a lot of anger, that we're able to be pleasant and productive and kind to those things. So I think we have an onus on all of us to foster resilience in our workplace as colleagues, as managers, as influence, and we have to foster that resilience in our own homes, in our own children and in our communities. And there was lots of talk last night about the power of community, and I think we have to come back and see, well, what is it that we need to do to make sure those communities are strong. But if I focus on the workplace, what you see with resilience in the workplace, it's absolutely eroded and destroyed if you have a command and control structure where staff feel they've no control, if there's a blame culture, by workplaces that don't have a bit of crack and enjoyment. You should laugh and work. It should be fun. You should come in and actually enjoy your work, and so to the people that are working with you. But if you have a workplace that overloads and overwhelms staff, it's very difficult to keep that resilience going. It's eroded by a lack of clarity of goals and vision, and where the conversation is negative and critical, where the organisations are focused on churn and just getting through multitudes of work, but they actually don't focus on how they're doing the work, or what are they actually doing, and how are they empowering staff to solve problems and to do things better. It's destroyed by allowing destructive and poorly performing staff to remain unchallenged. And I think that's a difficult one, is how do you challenge the people who are destructive in the workplace? And I think the relentless change that's seen in the health community and public service really has used up all the batteries of resilience that are there. And that continuous change and lack of clarity severely damages the workplace and has damaged our public services. And if any of you remember back to the opening of the Olympics in London, I was lucky to be able to bring my children over to that, and I saw do you remember the opening ceremony? It was just amazing. And they had an opening ceremony with the NHS. And in the UK, people are so proud of their healthcare system. We could have that same healthcare system. We've got great people in there, but we have to work to support them to build back up that resilience. And I'd say the same for local authority, we were talking last night about the LEADER programme. They are great programmes and great staff, but we have to work to support them to build that resilience. We have to learn to lead and actually build up those reserves of resilience in the workplace, foster positive engagements, And I was actually listening to a lady from the NHS talking recently about design or dignity in the workplace and stopping bullying in the workplace. And she actually was saying you have to stop the endless emails. When you're working beside a colleague, you have to get up and you have to walk down the corridor and speak to them, have that face-to-face conversation. This reliance on electronic communication all of the time is actually damaging resilience and damaging workplace relationships. We have to be clear about the purpose of our organisations, which are to serve the public. In my case, it's to serve the public who fund us, and the same in our public sector. We have to be clear why the organisation exists and what we're collectively trying to achieve. We have to build in staff development and training on helping staff to problem solve and project manage, and providing clear frameworks for the management of poor and excellent performance so staff feel the workplace is fair. A resilient workplace is the only way we can build a public service that we can be proud of in the years ahead. Thank you very much for your time.